Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Ripster Daily Trade Recaps, Daily Teachings. Before we start, quick disclaimer, anything we discuss is just for educational purpose, nothing is financial advice. Alright guys, earnings season kicked off today from the banks. We focused on the earnings, but a lot was happening today. There was an IBM news, we took all the softwares down, a lot of softwares bounced crazy. The new IPOs, new listings were running SKHY, SpaceX was dumping again. So a lot to cover today, but if you're new, you will learn a lot. You will learn how to trade the earning setups, how to be ready, how to plan your trades, so that using Ripster Clouds and all the teachings I do. I'm just going to do a quick introduction, not a long introduction, so anybody's so new. So all the setups that I'm showing you are from our live trading group. I've been teaching Ripster Cloud System, my teaching of swing trading, investing, and day trading freely over 8-9 years on X, ripstereducation.com, and on YouTube. Thousands of traders use my systems across the world and trade consistently. We trade it live in our community, Tanner Trade Group, one of the largest online trading community with a lot of tools, free tools for traders to trade with. Anyways, follow along, see all our timestamped setups that I guide live on voice, and in our community we plan in the pre-market live planning, and I'm going to show you that. And so let's get going. Let's start with the first setup of the day. All right, so let's start with JP Morgan. Before going to other setups, we're just going to focus on the earnings. So let's see what was our plan on the earnings. So we have a plan, right? If the earnings season is our top season, this is where we grow our account consistently with our trade setups. And always earnings season always starts with the banks, then the other names follow. So this morning we have a defined section where we plan. All that our community members we provided this trading plan in the pre-market. I also tweet out it sometimes to my followers. So the plan on today on the JP Morgan was that it beats. Overall I did tweet out as well. The earnings were strong on the banks, right? So you need to always analyze the earnings. You can always go to our research and research platform. You can always ask Tannet AI how was the earnings today. So if you ask about the earnings today, and that I tweeted out as well, it was that all the major banks reported a strong start of Q2 earnings season, with most exceeding revenue and earnings per share. JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, everybody were doing good, broad-based top line growth. Trading revenue was good, interest margins were stable. So the banks were strong. So let's see what happened. Let's see how we were traded that for the morning moves, and then we'll also watch what happened later. So JP Morgan, you see it was gapping down. Even though the earnings were beat, it was gapping down right here. When something gaps like that, we use pre-market lows. We use our Ripster 512 clouds. These are 512 clouds, and we also use MTF clouds to have a bias on our setups. So I told the traders only long if 326.50 area holds, or it's pushes through it and holds. If it fails, we will short it, and MTF is above. As soon as I see this strong volume candle, the first candle, it becomes a long. Right in the first 2 minutes of trading, I tell the traders to long it. Curl longs. Curl means this is the curl, and you long that curl. And we go long that curl as per the pre-market planning. I told the traders to long it. So from that long, we started to push here. You can see that we broke this MTF clouds. Next target is always the next MTF clouds. We hold into 10 a.m. trend time. So, but just in 10, just in 15 minutes since we got in long right at the open. Because if you get right in at the open, your risk is always the lows of the candle or the pre-market lows. So even if you added 332, 333, you're kind of risking this area. So you're risking like $3, but it ran from 332 all the way to 344. So we got 10 points just in the first 5 minutes. And then I told the traders to sell some here at 10 a.m. trend time. We always take some profits at 10 a.m. And then I told the traders that JP Morgan is flagging, and from that flag it pushed to 345, 340.73. And then when you see that of the first few hours, it starts to consolidate, cannot break this level, lower high, and this is where you stop out. Right, so even if you stop out from 333, 340, you still make $7. Of course, you have to take Most of if you have 1,000 shares, you sell 300 here, you sell 300 here, you keep the rest, and then you can sell all the 300 here. Even with that, you are risking few $1,000s, but at the end of the day, you made 6-7 grand, and that's a good risk reward trade. We follow the Ripster clouds, we follow the pre-market levels, the 512 calls, and this was already given to the traders in the community how to trade the JP Morgan. It's an MTF there, the levels. That's how you plan. You have to plan your earning trades, and that's how you can execute them right at the open. You can see that traders, selling once the trend is breaking. Explorer got out of big green trade there. D-Dow did really good. Tony was long on that. IB was a little high. Still, the traders took some nice profits on JP Morgan. Targets were given by other members as well. You see, we all work together to make that very profitable long trade. All right, so next we're going to take a look at Goldman Sachs. So Goldman Sachs was one of my favorite this morning. The reason being Goldman Sachs was my favorite. Let's see if I can show you that. You can see that in my voice transcript. I told in the pre-market before the market opened that long Goldman Sachs looks the best out of all, really bullish. And you told the traders that Goldman Sachs is a long, JP Morgan is of course a long. And as soon as you see that Goldman Sachs breaks out of this, let's look at the pre-market planning on Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs, bullish bias on pullback, long over the pre-market highs. As soon as it breaks pre-market high, it's a confirmed long for me. You can wait for the next candle, 10-minute candle. You want to trade 10-minute ORB, you can do that. You just don't need too many shares. If you're buying at 1,095, you're risking $10 per share. That means if you have, let's say you have 10 shares, right? So if you have 10 shares of this, you are ideally risking 100 or a few $100. But when it runs from 1100 breakout, ran all the way to 1140, then you see that you risked $100, but you're making $400 or $500 on that trade. So that was a long. Right away, I called it long. As I showed you, Goldman Sachs is a long. So from that long, Goldman Sachs pushed, and I gave the target 1120. We hit the 1120. My final target was 1150, but we stalled at 1135 and pulled back. So we stopped out here. But in the middle of the day, it did a reclaim. So this is called a reclaim. It did hit 1144. So it's a high watch on tomorrow as well for a day to set up. But you can see that my timestamp guidance, my voice guidance, my pre-market planning, everything as per the plan, bank's earnings. And one thing I need to tell you, this is not the first time we are being trading this bank's earnings. If you go to my X, go to my YouTube, we traded these bank's earnings every quarter. Sometimes they chop. I know October earnings, they did the same exact thing. They dipped and ran crazy on earnings. Sometimes they're gap and go. Sometimes they pull back in the first 20 minutes. But it's a very repeatable, consistent setup. We know these earnings. We know the earnings season starts with the banks. So we always try to kill them. So anyways, these were our top two banks. Let's see how the other banks did. So the other banks were not, we were definitely watching. The other banks we were watching was Wells Fargo, Bank of America. We were also watching a Citigroup. So let's start with Bank of America. So Bank of America also curled. You could trade that. You could see them all my pre-market planning here. Bullish bias to long versus MTF. Citigroup, choppy price action on Citigroup, trade versus MTF. And Wells Fargo, long over MTF. So you see that Bank of America, you could long right away. You could make a couple of dollars there. It was still a similar trade as the JP Morgan. Bank of America, it was fine. But few of them, for example, Wells Fargo was not that strong. You could take some profits into 10 a.m., but then it would pulled back, broke it. You have to exit there. Citibank also pushed and then dumped huge, right? So you have to get out right here. So if you long at the open, you did still good trade. So you see that how the different banks reacted differently. Goldman Sachs was still the strongest, JP Morgan strongest, Citigroup was the weakest after the initial pump. So you have to analyze the price action. When you see this big red candles, you get out, and sometimes the conference calls are going on as well. So this is the same setup we will use for other earnings as well. Hopefully you learned a lot from this. Let's go to the next trades. All right, so next setup we are going to look at is APP. So what was APP? So this morning, all the softwares were weak. Why were the software weak? We will come to IBM in a little bit. All the softwares dumped because of the IBM earnings. IBM said the capex is going down. So the point is all the softwares are dumping, but a lot of softwares reclaimed and became bullish. APP was my top focus. Let me show you why. APP was my one of the top day to plays because it was a down big yesterday as well. 433 support, 440. We had initial bearish bias because all software was weak, but once it pushed over that previous day closing price, or even if it pushed over the 512s, we were long biased. So as soon as I see this curl, because I know that it's already down almost 80 bucks from yesterday, so I knew there's an opportunity to bounce because software started to bounce. So as soon as I see this candle, I tell the traders 512 curls means long. This is the 512 cloud. This is telling it's long. You can use this risk if you want to. This little candle 429. If you're adding at 436, 438. I was in the guidance, so I could not. I was not able to. I was a little late personally because I was guiding the traders, but I did get like let's see if I can show you here. So I did get like a little late entry right here at 442s. I would have loved a better entry, but a lot of traders get the better entry, and the targets I gave was 450. That was my first target, 446 breakout, and 450 next target. So we hit 446, 450, and we went on to hit 460 there, all the way to 459. So you see, I made $18 per share profit. Even if you had a little bit shares, you could easily make 450 first target, 455 next second target, and we ran all the way towards our MTF clouds there on APP here. It was a little different. I'm also testing this 24-hour data on MTF clouds. So if I look at 24-hour data, that kind of hit the MTF cloud. So I'm still testing that on 24-hour data on these stocks. See how that pans out, especially on the 1-hour chart. It's a little different. But anyways, you could see that how you could make, even if you had 100 shares, you're risking $300, you will make $1,500 by end of the day, because if you had 436, 438 entry, because APP1 was one of our top long plays. This is how you buy the dips, the gap downs. The same thing happened on PLTR. Let me show you that. So PLTR, so let's look at PLTR. So PLTR was also on our game plan, highlighted as a red, means a main highlight stock. Told the traders long if the previous day level is reclaimed. So what did it do? What did PLTR do? So you see that PLTR right away did the same exact thing. 512 cloud, it's a long, right away you have to get long, because you can risk this level right here. You get in long right away. Even if it's at 125, you risk $2, no problem. And the PLTR from the 512 girls, great guidance by D Dow. He guided continuously to the traders from the long here, step by step. And we had the pre-market planning as well. Ran from one MTF to the second MTF to third MTF. Never broke Ripster clouds for once. And that's how you find the big huge winners. That's how you find the opportunities on gap downs. Whenever there's a gap down and it holds the pre-market lows, curls over the 512, you get in long. Because of the IBM news, PLTR was getting punished, but you see that it even broke out of the yesterday highs, and that was the breakout push to the MTF clouds. All day long, you see, ran from 124 to 135. Even if you had small tiny position, you could really grow your account very nicely with this PLTR move. So that's how you trade the morning gap downs. That's how you do the 512 Ripster calls. And I will also show you where it doesn't really work. So that was a little different. So let's go to the next one. So now we're going to look at So we're going to look at IBM, right? So IBM was a short all day. So IBM was not a long. So IBM was all short all day. So I told the traders IBM is a super duper heavy, super duper short. Let it fade. Do not touch IBM long. So that was my guidance to the traders, right? I said watch the pre-market lows. If it pushes over that, then you watch your short. If it breaks that, you hold your shorts. So IBM was just a short all day, no long, short with 225 stops. Let's look at the pre-market planning on here. Number one trade here, IBM. Support 217.70, resistance 240, bearish bias to short the pops. Watch 512 calls for shorts. If it 512 rejections for shorts, that's what it means, a typo there. Only long if we break out over 240 and 3450 calls. You see that we could never reclaim even this 512 clouds. So there's no long in IBM. No long. Nobody was buying the dips on IBM. You short here, you short the pop here. Once the pre-market goes down, it confirms your short. You see the pre-market testing, bouncing, 512 rejects, fail the pre-market lows, take it all the way down. My target was 212. That's what I told the traders on IBM. We did hit a decent amount of targets. Let's see if I can show you my the voice guidance here. You can see my transcript. Still heavy, still heavy, still heavy, still heavy. So that was my all-day guidance on IBM. And once we reclaimed this cloud, we got out. So even if you short 222s, if you short 220s, then you have $3 risk, and you could still make 2 or 3 times your risk. That's what you do. You risk 1, you try to make 3. So IBM was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful short as well. And you see that it was opposite to, there was no call on IBM, right? So that's how you trade with Ripster clouds. Ripster clouds will tell you, the pre-market levels will tell you. If there's an MTF cloud, that will tell you. You always also look at your daily chart. If daily chart, you see where it bounced from the support here around through 13. So we'll be watching IBM tomorrow. If it breaks under today's lows, we'll short it. If it holds the today's closing price, then we will try to long it, because there's also a daily support right over there. All right, so next one we're going to look at is TSEM. So let's see what was TSEM doing. And TSEM, what was happening was TSEM was gapping up. So there was a news on TSEM. So let's take a look here. So news, Japan plans 3 billion expansion. 3 billion expansion Japan. Bullish bias to long. Gap and crap under 265. There's a typo there, 267, 265. So as soon as I see that you break in this 512, it already becomes a short for me. And then when it breaks this area, it becomes a short. So you always draw your Fibonacci's. So Ripster Cloud will tell you, you're definitely not long as if it stays on the pre-market low highs. That's always your, that's always first thing you got to do. And Taiwan's TSEM was a gap and crap short, and it faded all the way from this one to the Fibonacci levels. You can see that almost touched that Fibonacci there. If you want to do the closing price, you could see the Fibonacci right there. So you could make that gap and crap short. So that was really good. All right, let's look at the next one. All right, so next one we're going to look at is SKHY. SKHY was one of our top day 2 setup. Whenever I put something on the top on the sheet on the day 2s, you always pay attention. Number 1 setup, bullish bias to long as we stay over yesterday highs, only short under 160, right? So what did it do? Held the pre-market highs. Look at this, pulled back, ran all the way upside there. A great guidance by the traders in the community. AV Capital reclaimed the 512 long. Day tradesmen alerted that as well. So continuous guidance by our traders on the floor, thousands of traders on our floor, and some really, really smart guys who were trading that that setup on that SKHY. And you could see that how it once it reclaimed. This is what mentioned by AV Capital. Once it was reclaimed, and then it broke the highs. It was all day Ripster 512 cloud long. I clearly mentioned in the pre-market planning, gave the plan clearly. That was a beautiful trade. And we are not spoon feed service. I teach my traders to do this. My traders are already doing this. They don't even need me to spoon feed them. They already know the setup. And we have options on it as well. And so traders took that long, a beautiful, beautiful trade by a lot of traders. Sid actually alerted this breakout as well. Vedang alerted the IPO highs breakout. Whenever something breaks IPO highs, it goes higher. Whenever something breaks IPO highs, it goes higher. So remember that, right? So you see that Sid was alerting that SKHY breakout right here. If you can see the screen here on SKHY, Sid was talking about that we are breaking the IPO highs. Let me see if I can show you that clearly. You see our traders, you see that right here. All right. So use that Sid is talking about, that's a breakout. So very good, well done by Sid. Vedang was talking about all-time high breakout. AV Capital, day tradesman, Sumi, everybody was on top of that, and the traders literally killed this trade. These are kind of trades which will trade your change your account balance if you hold with the Ripster Clouds. Number 1 day 2 setup, SKHY. All right, just want to talk about NBIS. I was personally not interested in a lot of AI names gapping up. I gave a warning that I'm not interested in AI names, which gapped up. So you can see that I said not interested. There are many gaps. I don't want to chase those gaps. My focus is the earning plays. So that's why I've saved a lot of money. And you see that NBIS, if you look at our pre-market planning on NBIS, let's look here. News, bullish bias to long, short under the MTF. That's it. Once we break that MTF, rejections, 10 AM short, you take the MTF short all the way down. you could literally trade a nice short there using the power of Ripster MTF Cloud. So just wanted to point out, sometimes these gap ups, the sympathy gap ups, they will have a lot of profit taking. So use Ripster Clouds. This is where Ripster Clouds broke. Watch the previous day lows. So that's very important, so that all the traders watch these concepts so remember these concepts if you're day trading: pre-market lows, pre-market highs, previous day lows, previous day highs, 9:45, 10:15, trend confirmation, open candle lows, highs, 5, 8, 12, 34, 50 EMAs, relative volume for the day, and you can also look at the option flow at the open. All right, so remember these concepts, you will do pretty good. All right, so let's look at a loser today. Loser today was EOSE. It was an MTF long that did not work. I told the traders to long versus MTF, and once it broke the 430, it was a loser. So it was a 20-30 cent loser for us. You can see the price action. Don't need to really explain. The reason for it is a daily chart is bearish. I guess the news was not that strong, but that's how you manage your risk. All right, hopefully you learned a lot. Imply these concepts, earning concepts, cloud concepts, and you should be doing pretty good. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.